Peter, we've heard a lot about the NES Classic, but you finally got to try it out.
Yeah, Nintendo has sort of given us a chance to play it just yesterday. And as someone who grew up with an NES, I was born the same year it was released, I've always sort of had an affinity for it. And so when they announced this, I was super excited. Now, granted, I collect Nintendo games now, so it was sort of a weird thing for me. It's like, do I want the real thing or do I want this? Where does it fall for me? And I found that it's sort of somewhere in the middle.
So, and the NES Classic, of course, is not this. It does not. It does not play cartridges. It comes with them pre-installed.
Yes, and it's also
a bit smaller.
Super small. I mean, it is less wide than this controller, or maybe just as wide. I mean, it is tiny, like super small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, does that mean the build quality isn't that great? Is it? Do you feel like it holds up? Is this something that you'd want to display?
I mean, that's just it, right? Like, it looks like a nice little model of an NES. And you know what? Yes, it does feel good in practice. The controller especially, that's one of the things that's the most important for these games is, responsiveness and sort of giving you that feeling that you had playing an original NES. And having done that recently, just on my own, the controller that I used yesterday felt great. It feels very much like the same build quality. And I was trying to get them to talk to me about how they match to the two. They didn't really have all that info, but I can say just from my experience, it feels really good. I'm very pleased about that.
But the way that the games look and play is probably the most important. As someone, especially for you, you've bought TVs specifically to play classic games on classic systems.
Yeah.
Does the emulation hold up? What do you think about the way the games look and play?
The games look good. I mean, they look as best as you'd expect on a 720p TV. And it's, yes, it's upscaled, but I think it's upscaled natively. So it's actually rendered at 720p. And that's important because then you don't have the problems of like input lag and delay. There is this sort of flickering you would get from an old NES. I mean, they're really trying to emulate these games as true as they can to what they used to be.
So there'll be some slowdown when there's like too many sprites on the screen, which doesn't make sense, but sure.
Yes, a little bit here and there, but that is what they are, and they're going to be true to that. There are a few modes where you can play the game. Traditionally, TVs were like 4:3, so there was some of these images would be stretched a tiny bit. Depending on your TV. You can also play in a pixel perfect mode, which is a perfect square. So every pixel is a square rather than like slightly stretched. Or you can apply scan lines to the image as well to sort of give you that CRT-like feeling where you had, every other line was darker and you had some of that going on. But it's not the same as playing on a real CRT. It's definitely a different feeling. And depending on your HD TV as well, you might want to have to worry about things like game mode or all the digital processing that goes in to your image just to make sure that the timing is correct. Because these games are really hard, and if you're off even by a couple frames, it can cause a lot of problems.
For the box itself, it's streamlined a lot. It just uses a regular HDMI to plug into your TV, and I think it has a USB for power?
It's powered by USB. Nintendo wasn't, the people I was speaking with didn't know if you can actually power it from a USB port versus like an AC adapter for a USB cable. If it does let you charge through something like a USB 2.0 port, which I believe carries 5 volts, you should be able to plug it just into your TV's service port. So then you don't actually need to have any sort of power connection, and that's great. But yes, there's no like analog out, it's just HDMI. And the controller connects using the same adapter that the Nunchuck used on the Wiimote. And what's great about that is these controllers, which are $10 on their own, you can actually use those to play virtual console games on your Wii U or the Wii as well.
And I think something interesting you mentioned is that they've replaced the power and reset buttons with a start and select, and that's kind of how you get into the quick save options for games.
Yes, so everything runs in an operating system, and it's essentially you're provided with a stream of covers for the 30 games that are included. So you press what is the reset button on this to get back to that screen. And so when you're back at that screen, you can choose a new game, or you can make save states. So you can save at any point in any game that you want. You have 4 slots for each game. You can lock saves as well, so you don't overwrite them by accident. It's a bit disappointing that I can't say hit start and select on the controller to initiate a save state. I actually have to physically touch the console itself. That said, the controller cable is a little bit short. It's only a few feet, maybe 3 feet. So you're not going to be too far from this thing at any given time.
I guess the most important question is there are a lot of options for emulating classic games these days, from standalone systems that run all of these old games to just finding an old NES somewhere, and now the NES Classic. Is this something you want to buy, like as a collector, as someone who loves playing these old games, or who is this for?
As someone who loves the NES, I want one of these because it is a really nice sort of like a monument almost to the NES. But that said, I was playing these games yesterday, and I'm glad to see them all there. There's a lot of excellent games, but I've played a lot of these in recent years. I own a lot of them already. So as a collector, I don't feel like I'm going to be missing out if I don't buy this right away. But that said, I would like to have one. And I can definitely imagine, for someone who doesn't play these games today, this is going to be an excellent little package. And it's like the perfect gift for anyone, late 20s, early 30s. And I'm really curious to see how maybe the younger generation is going to pick it up as well.
Yeah, I wish it had internet connectivity. Like, I wish that you could download other games or it was tied somehow into your virtual console library, because I have a lot of these games already.
Yes,
But
that would be nice. But I mean, it's $60. It's pretty cheap, and you get 30 games for that. And yeah, unfortunately, there's no way to expand it. Nintendo's not going to be releasing carts that give you more games, and like you said, there's no internet and no tying into your eShop account.
But when does it come out?
November.
Right.
And I think they're sold out already, pre-orders. The next wave that opens, you're going to be able to pre-order it, and you should get it before Christmas. But this is like a classic system launch now. Like, this thing is selling out, which is kind of interesting.
A nice Christmas gift would be to buy one of these, the original ones, and put the NES Classic inside of it, and so you have to open up the NES Classic.
It's not a bad idea.
That's a good gift idea.